My name is Anthony Hancock. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio.
Where did you grow up?
Cleveland, Ohio. Yes. I went to the University of Tennessee here back in 1978, the 81. Then I was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. I lived in Kansas City from 82 to, I guess, 88. And then moved back to Knoxville, Tennessee in 88, I believe, yes.
What school did you attend growing up?
Cleveland John Hay High School in Cleveland, Ohio.
And then you went to UT?
University of Tennessee, yes. From school, all my memories are fond memories. Just being around family and, running the streets in terms of playing sports and hanging out at churches periodically with my parents. My mother was a evangelist, so she used to always take us to church all the time and just hanging out. And then after that, she used to ball games with my father. He used to play with the Negro Leagues in baseball, so I used to always go to his baseball games and carry his shoes and his bat for him. So I was always around sports and just church a lot. Well, it was interesting because I started off at Moreland Elementary School, which was in Shaker Heights, Ohio, and it was just down to maybe right down the street from where I live. And then I ended up going to Honorway School, and Honorway was the segregated school during the time period. And so I was bused to school from Moreland down the street to Honorway, and then from there I went to Woodbury, graduated from Woodbury, then we moved to Cleveland, because I was living in Shaker Heights, Ohio for a little period of time, and then I was going to John Hay High School in Cleveland, Ohio. They called it junior high school during that time period, and then high school, John Hay. And what's so interesting about John Hay is it was right next to the Cleveland Clinic. The Cleveland Clinic, and then you had Case Western Reserve, and the National Art Museum, and National History Museum, and has the National Cleveland Orchestra, University Center. So in order for me to get to high school, I had to pass all those different things in order for me to get to high school. So I was pretty much educated around all those educational things in Cleveland, Ohio, before I got to school every day. My parents just said whatever we wanted to do, pretty much what we wanted to do during the time period. My mother was very, very vocal in her ministries, and she just said keep God first, and I used to always pray Psalms 23. So pretty much, it's kind of, I'm not saying it went over my head, but I think that during the time period, we did what we had to do to continue to move forward.
What was the rest of the community like?
Pretty much the same. It wasn't a lot of, I didn't really get a lot of racial issues and things like that growing up, to be honest with you. You name it, I did it. From tennis to badminton to tiddlywinks to hopscotch to volleyball to baseball, basketball, soccer. Whatever had anything with a ball or requires running, I did it. Rivalry? I guess between JFK, John F. Kennedy, and John Hay High School during the time period. I went to Christian Tabernacle Baptist Church there in Cleveland, Ohio. My father's name is William Lee Hancock, and my mother's name is Cassie Chambers Hancock. But before then, it was Chambers was her maiden name, excuse me, yes. Cassie Chambers was her maiden name. Yeah, they were born in 1935, my mother was, and she from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and my father was Lebanon, Tennessee, which is not too far from here. My father works with the Ford Motor Company, the casting division. My mother pretty much was a stay-home mom who did everything with 7 brothers and sisters. Hobbies, just raising kids, raising family. That was their hobby.
They do anything outside of work?
Raising the family, that was their hobby. 7 of us total, yes.
Are your parents still alive?
No, they're both deceased.
When did they pass away?
It was an interesting story because I went to University of Tennessee. My parents, when I got drafted, they moved from Cleveland, Ohio to Knoxville back in 1982. And then my mother died in 1984. And then my father died, I think, 1994, yes.
Where are they buried at?
They were cremated. Yeah, here in Knoxville. Yes, they both cremated. I knew Alma and Cody and William and Natalie. Well, William Hancock, Jr. My grandfather's name was Senior. And then you had Mama Nellie. And then you had Alma Crawford and Cody Crawford.
Where were they from?
Lebanon. My father's people from Washington was Lebanon. My grandmother was from Hickson, Kentucky. Alma was from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in Nashville. and my grandfather was from Chicago.
So
Cody.
How'd your father end up in Cleveland?
You know, his brothers moved from Cleveland, from Lebanon to Cleveland to work during a time period at the motor factories. Ohio's pretty much factories, motor, Detroit, Motor City, all those factory workers primarily. When they left the south to go to up north for factory workers. And my other grandfather, Mr. Cody Crawford, he worked on the railroads. Yeah, he was a bellman on the railroad tracks.
Do you know where they're buried?
They were cremated.
Oh, okay.
It's the history of cremation in my family.
Where do you live now?
Here in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So like in this Oakland community?
Well, it's interesting. I don't live in the Oakland community, but I was introduced to church here in the Oakland community by my girlfriend, who is now my wife, by one of her friends who happened to be at the time the pastor's daughter. And she met my wife at a beauty shop, and she said she was looking for a church. And she said, well, have you thought about my church? Come visit my church. So she came to visit. And then she told me about it, and I started to come and visit. And then we both joined here at Foster Chapel.
When was that?
Well, we married since 1988, so that's 33 years now. So I guess close to 34 years. Well, I don't know about social activities around the community, but I know that here at Foster Chapel has been a real part of the community in terms of just the foundation of the community. When I first got here with Pastor McGee, who is the pastor here, and since that time period is now, we use this facility right now as a food pantry. And when I say food pantry and also outreach ministries for Second Harvest Food Bank, it's called the Oakland Food Pantry Ministry, that we work with Second Harvest Food Bank to work with the food ministry here. And that, again, was started by Pastor Talbert here. But we also had something interesting here where Pastor McGee was here. We started a bereavement ministry. And he asked me one Sunday to be part of the bereavement ministry that he wanted to get started. So when someone died, they would have a person who they would go to contact the families and help them with not burial arrangements, but just support them during a time period. And since that time period, there has been hundreds of people who have come through here that we have worked with, and probably one of the few bereavement churches that have a bereavement ministry. So if a church member's parents or if somebody dies who's a church member, we meet with the families, and we don't do the role of a funeral home because that's their responsibilities. But we do support them in terms of helping them with prepare for the service. Because you're not really prepared for a service in terms of, you're not really thinking about the order of service or ordering different things. I mean, that funeral home does those things, but we try to support them from a family standpoint. And that's what and we've been doing this since 1990. So it's been almost 30 something years we've been doing it.
So you've been involved with that since the start of
it? It has. And then I left to move to Nashville, Tennessee. And that's a funny story because we moved to Nashville, Tennessee, my wife and I, for 5 years. The Sunday we came back and we were thinking about going to another church when we came back. And we went to this church, and they were having some sort of rift going on. It was a church split. So the church we were going to, people were meeting in a parking lot, people meeting across the street, and they had pretty much closed the pastor out of the church. So my wife said, well, I don't think we're going to go visit this church. So we came back to Foster Chapel. That same Sunday we came back. And when church was over, one of the faithful members, Sister McLaughlin, and she came up to me, she said, what y'all waiting for? I said, waiting for? She said, yeah, why y'all didn't join? I said, you joined? She said, yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe I want to look at, she said, no. And I thought, Paula? She said, yeah. So I went and got, Pastor McGee came down and we rejoined at the church. And we've been with Foster Chapel ever since again. So when we came back, we didn't even have a chance to even look at any other churches. It was right back to Foster Chapel, which is a blessing because it has always been a close-knit community church and also community. We have close to over 50 ministries right now. Again, this ministry right here is the Oakland facility. This is the original Foster Chapel. We have a property we purchased recently over at the Alt Road location, 2101 Alt Road, where Pastor Joseph Talbot is the pastor over there at the present time. That's the facility, and we outgrown this facility, but we still use this facility to house funerals, weddings, different conferences. It was a fire about 3 or 4 years ago at this facility, so they redid the whole church, and now the insides is just, everything is new. So and then we have a graveyard back over here. I think there's one more slot for one more member over there, and that's her spot. But it has really, really been instrumental in the community. Not only in this community, but also because the church is the people, the members. And the members go out to preach the gospel, which we govern ourselves to do. But we also have a physical structure. And this is the structure where Mr. Alvin Foster started this program, or started this ministry from almost 100 years ago. That's what he called Alvin Foster Chapel. Oh, it was over 100 years. I think it's going 109 years anniversary. I think Reverend Alvin Foster was the minister. And there's a deacon thing over there also that talks about a deacon plaque that talks about when the first deacon was church erected during a time period.
And the cemetery, is that old as well?
Yes, it has been. Been here a long time, yes.
How large is your congregation now?
It's close to over 800 members. And again, we use the facility in the Alt Road location. And this is the original Foster Chapel. So I have a lot of ties to this location here.
When you first came here and you all joined the church, how large was the congregation then?
Oh, maybe about 150 people. 150 people. When Pastor Talbot came, Pastor McGee's retired. Well, you never really retired, but he became Pastor Emeritus, Robert McGee. And then we stayed here about another 2 years, and then we started to expand. And it's a facility, Buffett Mills Church, Baptist Church, and then we purchased that church and renovated it and moved into it. And we have another piece of property also we're thinking about building another church, but we're just doing this pandemic right now. We're just kind of getting back into the flow of regular meetings times through congregations. So,
in normal times, are there any particular events that stick out to you that you really look forward to during the year?
Oh, homecoming every year. Mother's Day, which is coming. Happy Mother's Day for Mother's Day, coming up pretty soon. Homecoming, Mother's Day, probably Father's Day. During the holiday season through Second Harvest Food Bank, our layman's ministry that we have here at the church do a food outreach ministry also for those who need the food ministry, give turkey baskets, boxes during the time period. I'm trying to think. Something's always going on. We have incredible drama ministries, children's choir, children's ministry, Bible quiz got going on, children's church ministry. We have a great drama ministry that preaches the gospel, and they do a lot of various plays centered around Easter, Resurrection Sunday, and some other things like that. But other than that, we just kind of, do the Lord's will and try to, bring people to Christ by presenting the gospel to them. Homecoming is we celebrate it's in May, which is this thing going on right now, and that's when we have a Old Timers Day. We call it a Homecoming Old Timers Day, and that's when you dressed up in your overalls or your old suits the deacons used to have, and they bring everybody used to, before this pandemic, everybody was bringing their favorite dish, and then we just put all the food out there, and everybody would come by and get everybody's different kind of food. It's changed periodically. We have food catering now, and I have box lunches. But that's when we used to have the old-fashioned greens and pig feet and chitlins and cornbread and mashed potatoes and candy yams and all those different things they used to eat from the ground in terms of just providing things for them. Oh, besides, you had Deacon Woods, I became a deacon here at Foster Chapel. Deacon Wood, Deacon Crawford, William Jones, who's Pastor Jones before he deceased, Miss Sister Gillespie, Mother Mitchell, just so many members. Miss Hall. I know I'll be missing some people's names. I don't like mentioning people's names, but those are members who've always been the foundation of the church, and who are, just good people. Just Brother Howard McLaughlin. It's just not really specific stories per se, just memories. You think about Foster Chapel, just people who made an impact in your life. I think that I can say before, people makes the church, because your body is the church. And I think that because the kindness of love that they have for Christ is the love that they showed to you also in everything that they did. And that's very important in this world nowadays, that we continue to love people like God so loved us. So love's the whole key, the agape love, unconditional love. And that's what everything is about that they taught during that time period. The same principles my parents brought me up on, the same principles they have here. Christ first. Well, just, continue to have love for each other, continue to keep each other in prayer. I think the word says, fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am the Lord, thy God. I will strengthen thee, I will help thee. I will uplift thy right hand with thy righteousness. So just continue to keep each other in prayer in all things that we do on a daily basis.